What happened to the lights?
欢迎继续回到2019炉石战士 HCT 世界总决赛第3天赛程的现场，我是今天主持人安娜丽。Welcome back to 2019 HCT World Championship Day 3。刚刚呢，我们在 C 组的淘汰赛的时候呢，看到了我们神秘数字人真的是发挥了西方神秘数字的力量，3比0直取了 Ike， 获得了晋级下一个比赛的机会。那紧接着呢，我们要进行的是今天我们淘汰赛的最后一场比赛，将会是我们的第一组淘汰赛，由我们的 Tyler 对上 Viper。那时尚大师 Tyler 呢，他背后真的有很多特别的经历以及故事，听了是令人相当动人。连我们的这个就是主播赛评呢，都是忍不住为他应援。但是呢，我们也希望 Viper 呢，可以就是发挥他的最佳实力来全力应战，好好的发挥呢自己可以晋级下一场的实力啦。Next match is going to be the last elimination match of Group D, and we are going to welcome Tyler and Viper. Please come to the center. Gentlemen, please come to the center and please shake your hands with each other and please be seated. 好的，接下来我们就把画面交给主播赛评。Let's send it over to our casters.
Welcome back, everybody, to the HCT World Championship. I'm TJ, joined by the Admiral. That's admirable. It's the final elimination match. One of these players going home. In fact, a player's going home every match for the rest of the tournament.
That's right. Those hands. I don't know, something about those hands.
Those are some solid hands.
Those are TJ hands, and I like them. David versus Goliath in appearance, but not so much on paper. I think on paper, this is a pretty interesting looking matchup we have here. Viper has brought Hunter, Rogue, Mage, and Warlock to this tournament. Tyler has brought Shaman, Rogue, Warrior, and Warlock to this tournament. And there you can see the bans on your screen. The Rogue banned away from Tyler. That is the central focus of the lineup from Viper. That excludes Warrior from the build. And this was a big planning point for Viper and Bunny Hopper when they came into this tournament. You can see Tyler banning away the mid-range Hunter. It's kind of a strange-looking ban given what's going on, but because Viper has brought Miracle Rogue rather than the typical rogues that we're seeing throughout the tournament, the aggression factor, I think, is really what he's concerned with. And it is still a bit surprising to me. We've seen Zoo be, making some really strong work of Rogue. He does have a Warrior deck in here that's a Control Warrior base. And he also has a Control Shaman that has 2 copies of Witch's Brew and a lot of ways to clear out boards. I think really the big fear from Viper's Hunter deck is that it's the it's a Tundra Rhino double Dire Frenzy version of it and trying to avoid that late game burst when Tyler inevitably gives Viper time. So it looks strange on paper, but we got a slugfest that's coming up.
Yeah, and one thing to note is Viper was a practice partner and shared a very similar lineup to Bunny Hopper, who made it out of his group 2-0. So the lineup is obviously working in some facets. And it's not a lineup that's designed to target something. It's a lineup that's designed to ban something. And that's oftentimes what happens in Conquest. He's designing his his lineup to ban Rogue because he thought that everybody would bring it. And then the rest of his decks are trying to just beat kind of everything else. His Mage and his Rogue deck he's teched them so that they're pretty good against Warrior. Well, Mage in general is just pretty good against Warrior. This is, I think, the best Rogue deck, period, against Warrior in the metagame.
I would definitely say something of this style certainly is. It features Gadgetzan Auctioneers.
This is the best one.
This exact 30 cards, there's nothing you can change. It features 2 copies of Gadgetzan Auctioneer to help, have that heavy cycle through the deck. But one of the big facets you're looking at is Togwaggle's Scheme and how it lets the deck operate. With Togwaggle's Scheme, it's going to shuffle 1, 2, and 3, and so on minions into your deck. And with cards like Leroy Jenkins and with High Spare and Togwaggle, you can create some pretty ridiculous turns where you have a nigh infinite amount of minions you can generate up to the board cap, that is, and have plenty of gas afterwards with which to operate against your opponent's removal. We're heading into Warrior versus Mage, and this first one's coming up, and this is an extremely uphill battle for Tyler in this one because Viper just has so many ways to generate the most insane-looking boards that Warrior's ever seen.
Yeah, now the one thing about the Mage decks on average in the field is that they have tech towards aggro. Now, I said it earlier, this Conjurer, the Summoner Mage, is just generally good against Warrior because it makes a lot of big threats. It has a lot of just medium-sized, thick boards that are very difficult to deal with, and Conjurer's Calling just exacerbates that issue.
Yeah, some chunk boards.
Yes, they're the chunk boys, board of chunk boys. Sorry, that's a very difficult sentence to say.
Well, for you, baby.
Say that 15 times fast. No, please don't.
Oh, dang, I was about to do it.
No.
TJ saw me winding up, and he went, oh gosh, no.
But there is some areas where he is going to have cards that don't do too much in this particular matchup. Which is like the Rabble Bouncer, which is put in there for Warrior, or for aggro. There's the Mind Control Tech, which is put in there for aggro. Sun Fury Protector, while it can find some spots, again, put in there for aggro. As well as Dragon Ball Scorchers. So all those cards make it a little bit weaker than, say, Roger's Mage list, which is Ultimate Greed, Double Power of Creation, big stuff all the way down.
Whew. Astromancer offered off of the Raven Messenger here as well. Maybe you're the dragon, but Raven's not gone yet.
Damn.
That is brutal. You're just mean.
He can go join his tortoises.
I mean, I get Shaman. Tortoise?
Come on.
That's just ridiculous. Tyler already facing down some tough-looking decisions here. There's just not really many tools in Tyler's deck that are going to line up well against what Viper's doing. You take a look at the list and how it's teched out here. You can see the Baron Geddon in hand. Obviously, a tool that's meant for the later game sustained removal against aggression. You're looking at a copy of Harrison Jones, Darius Crowley, overall pretty weak in the matchup. Spellbreaker, not really doing much here, but he does have some cards that do function quite well. And I'm looking at Big Game Hunter, the pair of Mega Devastators, a copy of Execute, and a Super Collider that are in the deck. You know, he's got some things that help him fight, but if Viper ever gets to like unfair board territory, that's really where Tyler's going to struggle. And just early on, he's run into, I'd say, one of the premier threats that you don't really want to kill with a Twilight Drake. You know, oftentimes having to use a removal on this, even if he had the ability to Shield Slam or Execute, just leaves him vulnerable to a Mountain Giant sticking on board. Yeah,
now the one thing that he did do last turn with the Weapons Project was make it so that Viper didn't really have an option to play the Mountain Giant because he had 8 armor just showing.
Yeah.
Which means that Shield Slam was just too much of a threat. And honestly, in this matchup, because of how important Mountain Giant is, and just because of how little the Warrior does in the early game, you can afford to just wait until you can play Mountain Giant, Conjurer's Calling at the same turn to get that going. Because especially with Twilight Drake, you have enough threats to get there. And in Viper's case, right now, he's got 3 Astromancers, which are possible in his deck, the 2 natural ones plus the one that he picked up off of Messenger Raven. And now there's a chance for a 4th.
And also just the 2 Conjurer's Calling in hand. I remember asking them, Viper and Bunny, in the interview process about Conjurer's Calling and how you mulligan with this deck, because I would say mulligan-wise, this to me has been one of the weirdest decks that I have ever played with. Like, I'm so unsure in a lot of my situations, aside from Book of Specters, which cards I actually want in my hand. So when I talked to them about it, in regards to Conjurer's Calling, Viper said, I never mulligan Conjurer's Calling. And I was like, whoa, what about against aggro decks? And Bunny Hopper kind of looks at him with that cheeky look on his face and goes, Zoo? And Viper goes, if I'm going second and I'm against Zoo and I had nothing else to keep, I would consider mulligan Conjurer's Calling. Not even that he would, just that he would consider it.
Yeah. It's just a good card. And look at that. Khadgar picked up from the second Messenger Raven, so very high value on those 2 cards. One picked up an Astromancer, the other picked up Khadgar. Not only do those 2 have synergy with each other, they just have synergy in period with the deck.
They're just scary cards. Like, cards that have text where it says, whenever you do something good, do it again. That's a scary kind of effect. And they're the kinds of cards that I love because even if your opponent, you know, just is looking at it from perspective of they're quite healthy on life total, you know, they're going even on total number of cards that you both have. A card like Khadgar forces action from your opponent. And I think when you have cards that force action from your opponent after they've already gotten something immediately, that is the making of an extremely powerful tool. I think Khadgar's here to stay for a while.
Yeah.
And here, Viper has an opportunity to start forcing brawls from Tyler. And you may kind of look at it and go, forcing brawls, why would I want to do that? Well, it's got Mountain Giant, 2 Conjurers Calling, 2 Astromancers, a Khadgar. Like, if you start exhausting Tyler's AoE this early, how on earth is he going to stop you later on?
Yeah. He can go Mountain Giant, Conjurers Calling this turn, still have the same size hand next turn for Astromancer. If both of those board states get dealt with, he has Khadgar plus going Astromancer again on the follow-up. Just,
by the way, still Conjurer's Callings in hand.
And still Khadgar plus another Astromancer in deck.
Yes, and so that all those things being considered, Viper just needs to figure out how on earth do I lose from this position and avoid those kinds of situations. He may not be making necessarily the best looking plays on a face value perspective, but I've watched a lot of Viper play. Toes out the ropey boat. I've watched a lot of Viper play, and he is a player who will avoid disasters at many, many steps of the way. But here, he goes face instead of trading off to Darius Crowley. That's a very unusual play from what I've seen of Viper. I get that Shield Slam, but a Shield Slam disaster, I feel like a 25% brawl on the Crowley lives is one of the only ways you're going to even be in trouble this game.
Well, if his goal is to force the brawl, this is the way to do it. Because let's say Shield Slam comes down, he doesn't have to brawl. He can take a hit. He can force more pressure out of Tyler. So by cutting out Shield Slam as an option, it's kind of like a hard brawl check. But this doesn't signify anything.
Yeah, well, honestly, I disagree. I think this tells Viper that Tyler does not have brawl. You had a 25% chance to win the brawl and wipe out 3 opposing minions. It's rare you get that chance. Baron Geddon here just means you take a ton of damage in the immediacy. I really believe that on Viper's side, it's looking like Tyler might not have brawl.
It's possible.
If I was in Viper's seat, that is the first thing I would think to myself and be like, oh, they don't have brawl.
I see a vision in the
And if you're going to use another Conjurer's Calling this turn or anything like that, adding a 2/2 to the board amidst making a big board position would also signify that you believe your opponent doesn't have brawl. Like, to me, this is a turn where Viper had a number of options in order to pressure this. Just wants to Voodoo Doll instead. Hit face for a bunch. Don't blame him. So he's accounting for brawl in this circumstance. Just making a strong play. Blow up their minion and hit for 12.
All right, so Dr. Boom, a good pickup, but that's 14 damage staring at him from the other side.
Yep.
Plus, he knows that there's a Conjurer's Calling.
You go up to 26, you would take 14, you'd fall to 12. So the question for Tyler is, going into a 9-mana turn, can he live by being at 12 health? And I think that he can, although admittedly it is extremely difficult from this spot.
The problem is his only other option is Brawl, which is actually a really good tool to have post Dr. Boom. Because let's say he brawls this turn, and we'll say, just as a hypothetical situation, Twilight Drake survives, the middle range minion. If Viper's able to reload, he spends an entire turn playing Dr. Boom, which means he takes more damage on the follow-up. He can roll that into Omega Assembly and try and find Omega Devastators. That's a possibility. But maybe he thinks that 14 is actually maybe the least he's going to take in order to set up a full Dr. Boom turn.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think he should be going for Dr. Boom here. It is just a grit your teeth and bear situation. And so the amount of time that Tyler's taking in this situation, and I think the non-attack is actually beneficial for Tyler in this spot. And he may actually be playing into the idea to Viper that he's in full panic mode right now. And so when he misses the attack, still trying to sell that idea, hey, I don't have Brawl, trying to squeeze every penny he can out of this massive AoE effect. But Viper is extremely versed in these situations. He was patient last turn with it. He does need to expend a card from hand this turn, But all things considered, you know, Viper, again, probably just going to be trying to avoid catastrophe for the next turn or so.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty big mind games moment right there.
Very rare.
Yeah, and the reason being is because Tyler probably thought to himself pretty early on in that turn, I'm playing Dr. Boom. And he's like, well, how can I get the most value out of Brawl? Maybe I just sell that I don't have it because that's what I did the previous turn as well.
Ooh.
And Viper,
it's a Conjurer's Calling.
yeah, this is not a big resource. This is half of a spell that he's using to make a bigger board.
I'll tell you what, this secret that's set from Viper is really going to put some worry onto Tyler here, though. He does have to consider whether or not it's Counterspell. He rips the Omega Assembly and sees that it is not, and you can see his immediate reaction when he sees it's not. He went, oh, I just wasted an Omega Assembly.
Well, to be honest, it's not a waste because really the only mechs that do pretty much anything in this matchup are almost exactly Dynamatic sometimes and Omega Devastator all the time.
7-8 survives, and Tyler from this position is going to have to figure out how on earth he wins this game.
Yep.
It's going to take a lot of good fortune if Tyler's going to get there. Now, Dr. Boom is the kind of card that can create that good fortune, but you're looking at some pretty slim chances for this to happen. That being said, I don't think this is unexpected. I think this is one of the toughest matchups, if not the toughest,
For sure.
across the side from Tyler's Warrior deck. Sometimes you just get got. Yeah, take your pick.
I was just about to say, what do you even do? I'm pretty sure it's just Astromancer.
Yeah, I think that's extremely reasonable. You connect for 7 and you hear a power.
And you get an
to make
8
it
drop, which is fantastic. 8 drops are some of the best in the pool.
Expend the Khadgar. Force him to have second brawl. Oh, no, he's expending the Khadgar in order to book a Spectres. So,
Okay, so he's going with Conjurer's Calling.
that's right.
This makes an even bigger board.
And the coin hero power to get away from 10 cards in hand. Tyler here has second brawl. I mean, there is a shred of hope for Tyler in this spot.
Oh, man.
I mean, there's a chance. And Shield Slam drawn.
Oh, he actually can put 2 minions into the pool as well.
Yeah, there's a real chance now.
Yeah, Shield
Now-
Slam would require Weapons Project.
Well, it would require a Weapons Project and some more armor. So he doesn't actually get to eliminate something unless he's able to, you know, have 2 damage afterwards. The 2 damage comes from too much mana worth of stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
well, what he needs to do, how many secrets has he been able to check for since his splitting image came down? Pretty much all of them at this point. All the ones that matter.
Well, I mean, he risked dying to explosive roots, but I just don't think he had an option. Tyler doesn't win the brawl, 7-8 wins, and I believe that wraps things.
Yeah, even Weapons Project means that he goes up to 9, but
Yep.
he gives his opponent a weapon as well, which means he dies. Game 1. Over to Viper.
And just an embarrassment of riches behind that as well. I mean, Viper still had 9 cards in hand. He still had both Astromancers. He had another Conjurer's Calling. A splitting image was still up. That was just a game that Tyler's not going to win if Viper has that kind of hand.
Yep.
Sometimes you win in the deck building phase. Sometimes you win in the gameplay phase. Sometimes you win in the top deck wars. They're all things you have to prepare for.
And as an update from one of our trends that we talked about in the pre-show, Mage, across the World Championship after 2.5 days of play, is now 11-3.
Insane. That is just an astounding record from a deck that was created within 8 days of the expansion. The players had to submit over a week ago for this event. And so, you know, we're looking at a metagame where they had very limited time to prepare 4 different decks for an entire conquest strategy. The versions that are in this tournament right now are becoming dated with, you know, some of the deck lists I've been seeing rolling around and the performances players have had. And in this tournament, it is just fantastic looking across the field.
Oh, yeah.
I think Mage is going to be one of the stronger competitors in this upcoming season.
And I think it's just starting to be explored right now across competitive lineups as well as on ladder. So it's
All right.
definitely a deck that we got to keep our eyes on in the future.
This is one of the biggest talking points that we have for Viper's lineup here. You know, as you mentioned, he wanted to build a lineup that had a ban strategy in mind rather than a target strategy in mind.
Yeah.
And so because of that, he's just built his decks to be, you know, compensated in matchups across the board. And the way that Viper and Bunny Hopper and some of the other players have chosen to compensate for the Warrior matchup with Zoo Warlock is to include Arch-Villain Rafam. And this is a pretty hot topic right now. If you're involved on the, you know, the social media platforms where players are talking about it, you know, I think we've all been quite critical of Rafam in this deck list, and mostly because of what it costs you in matchups that aren't control matchups.
This is going to be the game. This game right here.
This is the matchup.
This is going to be the one where Arch-Villain Rafam wins the game.
It's intended to help
It's going to happen.
supplement the control matchups. I don't buy it.
He's going to rip it on turn 7 right after losing his entire board. All hopes will be lost. And he will win. I don't know, maybe. One fun fact to note, and this fun fact brought to you by Lorinda, who has helped us. He's put together a lot of stats for us over the course of the broadcast, helped make us look smarter than we actually are. Tyler, coming into the World Championship, had lost to every player in his group in HCT at some point this year. He lost to Bloody Face at the Winter Championship. He lost to Roger at HCT Orange County. And he lost to Tyler in HCT Italy.
That's crazy. That's a really interesting thing there. Thank you, Lorinda. You can follow Lorinda on Twitter if you haven't already. Posts a lot of cool stuff that's related to the competitive scene. If it's something that you're really interested in, I think he's one of the greatest out there to follow for, you know, information updates and just cool stats and trivia questions. He likes trivia.
Absolutely. In fact, he gave the casters a trivia sheet with all of his statistics. I knew all of them. I'm just really smart. I have the memory and the stature of an elephant.
Well, the elephant in the room right now is what Viper does with his hand. You know, on one hand, you're thinking about Dino-Matic. You want to spread out because of that. On the other hand, you're thinking about Brawl, and you don't want to spread out because of that.
And on your third hand, you're thinking about Warpath.
I was just thinking about cheeseburgers.
Welcome to my world, buddy.
So many possibilities.
Viper has to have a lot of interest in taking out this Acolyte cleanly first.
Yeah.
But sort of the nature of this matchup and the way that it really wants to play is it is inherently a burn deck. The big question you ask yourself right now is, what do the extra cards give Tyler? What does the extra damage cost me?
Oh, attack first, but okay.
Ooh, yeah.
2 damage. That's a lot. All right, let's keep going.
You see Viper wince a little bit to see the 5-2 pop up.
Yeah.
The 5-2 actually is, I think, pretty darn good for him right here. He doesn't know it. You know, Warpath is certainly one of the cards he's thinking about. But given this specific context, the 5-2 threatens to be quite massive in this spot.
Yeah.
You're looking at a 2-drop that ended up making it to 5 power by you adding minions to board.
Now, this it does make it a lot weaker to Super Collider is another thing. So
I mean, that's true, but I mean, if Tyler plays Super Collider, it drops to 11. I don't think you could drop to 11. I think dropping to 11 is terrifying, and it's something I'm not going to do.
Well, I mean, he drops to 14.
Oh, you mean on the knife juggler, because the positioning. Oh, I'm stupid. Ignore me.
I mean, he could attack the 5-2 if you really wanted.
No, that's a bad idea. Ignore it.
But Super Cloud is a great thing to have because then you can set up for,
I like this better.
yeah, doesn't use the coin. I think the coin expenditure is the big thing here.
I think in this matchup, Tyler has to be interested in coining Dr. Boom. Like, the extra 7 health you get is a pretty major benefit. And looking at Viper's deck list, there are 2 copies of Soulfire. Tyler needs to be mindful of those. And then the nuclear option with Arc, Villain, Rafam.
Yeah, there's also 12 copies of Leroy Jenkins once he plays Archvillain Rafam.
Sometimes.
The light protects me.
Slam those Mecharoos. Make that brawl as tough as possible.
Yeah. Still got a Solarium in the chamber as well as a Soulfire.
I think Tyler's hoping that Argent Squire wins.
Maybe one of the Mecharoos.
Oh! So now, this is actually a pretty solid situation because Tyler gets to swing in this spot. He takes some damage on the backswing, but now you're looking at Dino-Matic being pretty clean on board because there's only the 1 mech left, which means it's going to focus fire down the rest of the minions that Viper's going to play, and it gives you options for Super Collider to be able to wipe out small minions next to the Argent Squire here. So if Viper has like insignificant additions on this turn, you get options open. Grim Rally drawn, second Grim Rally drawn. Direwolf Alpha drawn. That is a lot of extra damage. Wait, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's lethal! That's 12 damage exactly! Holy smokes!
That was just the perfect combination of cards to get from Solarium. And Tyler was coming into this matchup expecting to have a relatively easy time. But Viper, I mean, we've criticized Zoo a lot so far this tournament. But sometimes you just do that.
And specifically,
you play all your stuff and you hit him.
We've criticized Archvillain Rafam, and he's done it!
He did it!
He won! Not that card specifically, it would have been way better as Leroy Jenkins in the deck. You know, it's inherently at its heart of hearts a burn deck, not an outlast your opponent and go to the endgame style of deck.
I don't know, I still have hope.
Sottle said it earlier. When the Warlock plays Soulfire, it's the other player that blows up. When the Warlock plays Archvillain Rafam, it's the Warlock that blows up.
What if you play both? Then
Well,
both players
in that
blow up.
situation, Archvillain Rafam would have been a great discard to the Soulfire. In truth, I see why the players have done it. It's supposed to shore up a matchup when you're desperate and you have to have something crazy end up going your way.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, if you're going to play a burn deck, you better burn them down.
Well, I'm done with the subject. But, I mean, this is what Zoo is kind of designed to do. It's been very inconsistent so far this tournament. With just kind of the way it pans out a lot of times. We've seen hands with double Sea Giant, double Grim Rally with no minions on board. But when you can take a win against Warrior in a pretty abysmal matchup like that, you have to be feeling good. And Tyler's chances now are so slim.
It's looking rough. I mean, he's gonna have to defeat
slim.
this rogue deck 3 times with Control Shaman, with his own Zoo Warlock, and with Control Warrior. That's a tough task considering this deck is built to prey on control. That is the rogue deck from Viper.
Yeah, very, very, very tough. But Viper 2-0 lead in the series over Tyler. Can he close it out? We're going to find out right after this.
Obviously, becoming the world champion, it changes everything. But on the flip side of the coin, it wouldn't be like the end of the life though. I feel like I'm already a very fortunate person to be in this spot, to just be at Worlds, and the fact that I get to play Hearthstone for a living, I feel already blessed. And no matter if I win or not, life is still great. I was hoping I could avoid Roger. I feel like once I get out of groups, my lineup is fine against everyone else. I think I really can take the championship and become world champion. So my father passed away on January 14th, so that's a couple months ago. And so I've been with Complexity for 3 years, and when that happened and I took a break from Hearthstone, my team was very supportive, and even after that, my team was like, let's compete in Worlds and let's have this patch on you to remember your dad. No, like my biggest support is and has always been my mom. Like even when she knows nothing about Hearthstone, and I told her, Mom, I'm screwed. Roger got me with his lineup. Like my mom was like, yeah, don't worry about it. Just play to your best hours, and that's all you can do, right? That's Hearthstone. Yeah, to all my fans, like thank you guys so much for the support. Like I know it just sounds cheesy, but like without you guys, I wouldn't have had the strength to keep going like this and be where I am right now. Like I got through some tough times, and it was literally Hearthstone that kept me going. Like Hearthstone just kept me going, motivated in life in general, and just kept me going.
I mean, I was pretty happy about just making it to 2 out of 3 championships in general, so that was like really, really good. Making top 4 to be the first player ever to qualify twice for Worlds in the same year would have been amazing. So I was pretty sad and disappointed after not making that. But in general, I cannot be too sad about making 2 out of 3 championships. I think Bunny and me, we kind of did a good job with that. We just didn't bring something that's going to lose us everything, but we also didn't end up with some, I don't know, super surprise picks. So I don't know, I felt like just bringing on average really, really good decks is going to be the better way in a new format. Playoffs was it wasn't like a stale format because we had nerfs and changes, but it was kind of a figured out format. Everyone knew, okay, those are the decks and that's what everyone was going to bring. And at this event, it was really different. Like everyone was going to play Rogue, almost everyone was going to play Warrior, and we expected most people to bring Hunter. Like that was the expected field. And I promised a friend I'm going to buy her a dog when I win.
Do you know what type of dog?
Corgi.
You were going to buy your friend a corgi?
Yeah. I'm super happy when I get a support back from fans and they really love those decks, and then people try it out, and then I get messages of, I got Legend with this, or I got to Ring 5, I'm having fun. It's always great to have these responses, so I'm pretty happy about community and my fans. So like a lot of shout outs to Kamari, to Casey, to Vira, to Barney Hopper, to like Deutsche Soccer Guild, all my friends that keep backing me up. Yeah, I'm super grateful for them.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Hearthstone World Championship.
Good! I'm sure that's a foreign word. I just don't know what it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's just what he really wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, maybe. You know what, Admiral? I'm going to buy you a corgi if Viper wins.
I don't want that.
What?
I don't have time. I'd love to have I would love to take care of a companion, a corgi companion. That sounds fantastic to me. However, I can't deliver that sort of time right now. I'm not ready for it. But I'll tell you what, in 2 years, you got it.
Viper wins the World Championship, I'm going to buy you a corgi in 2 years.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay. Shaman versus Rogue.
Shaman deck for Tyler is a control Shaman, and I'm looking at this list, and against this Rogue deck, I think it's going to have a really tough time. It doesn't really have a way to get super aggressive. It's meant to outlast aggressive decks that have a finite potential to them. The Rogue deck from Viper doesn't really have a finite potential unless it's under pressure and has to expend some pretty important tools. Looking at the deck list from Viper side, the Togwaggle Scheme, I think, is one of the key cards when it comes to control matchups. Being able to shuffle in extra Leroys or being able to shuffle in extra high spare and Togwaggles means that you can do some really insane stuff against decks that give you a lot of time. The Violet Teacher, keeping the opening hand. That's meant to just keep some pressure on Tyler and see if we can keep on the back foot. The rest of it, basically ways to get through your deck and draw lots of cards. Gadgetzan Auctioneer is a pair of, the Miscreants, of course. Questing Adventurer to attack on some stuff, but at its heart of hearts, it's a Miracle Rogue deck.
Which Viper has a ton of experience with.
Oh, yeah.
Job done.
This is one of his most played decks lifetime.
Yep, that's correct. All the iterations, all the way back. When Leroy was 4 mana.
When he was a
when
wee lad.
Gadgetzan Auctioneer was 5 mana.
Ooh.
When Backstab dealt 8 damage. For those of you who didn't play back then, no, backstab never dealt 8 damage. Sometimes it felt like it did.
Interesting turn here for Viper. I wonder if he had ever intended to tempo out the questing adventurer if he hadn't seen this kind of damage across the board from him. You know, again, I mentioned it. The little annoying chip damage that can happen, that's really the way that Viper can be put into a position where he has to expend tools he doesn't necessarily want to use. I'm thinking about using preparations to snag back tempo. I'm thinking about using shadow steps to try to buy back key minions and use them to keep fighting on board. If those kinds of things happen, Tyler can really limit the nutso combo potential from Viper in the late game. And so that's really why I think a lot of the debate on this turn was not necessarily this turn in particular, but how he's going to set up for turn 4 and turn 5 and turn 6. Because turn 6 is going to be, I think, one of the big inflection points of this game, to use the term correctly.
Nice.
For once.
Great job.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Now, Thunderhead is a much more volatile version of Violet Teacher. It can get a lot more generation and a lot more raw power.
Pretty appropriately named.
Yeah, I would say so.
And you can see Viper going through all the turns and visualizing some stuff. You take a look at his camera right now. Again, the debate is not this turn in particular. It's how this turn affects 2 turns down the road. That's the way you constantly have to play Miracle Rogue, and why the experience on this deck is so important is because when you get to Gadget and Auctioneer turns, you don't have time to wait around anymore. You have to be decisive the turn that you play that card.
Pay attention, class.
Yeah, and I feel like we have to take a step back and talk about how this matchup is going to play out in the long term. So Viper is not running pretty much any aggression. He doesn't run Waggle Pick. He doesn't run any weapons. He doesn't run any of the early aggressive tools like Hench Clan Thug. I'm just going to lump Blink Fox and Hench Clan Burglar in there because they're just minions that hit people.
The Burgle Boys.
Yeah, it's basically Edwin Van Cleef. That's the only thing he has early on that's going to apply any significant pressure other than Questing Adventurer, which is not a traditional 3-drop most of the time. The Viper is trying to cycle through his deck as fast as possible with Gadget and Auctioneer, with Wanted, with Preps, and get to the point where he can play a Lackey with Heistbear and Togwaggle and go infinite with Togwaggle Scheme, or pretty much infinite with Togwaggle Scheme.
Yep. Meanwhile, Tyler is he's turned into bootleg Rogue with this Thunderhead and a combination of spells here. He's going to be overloaded next turn and leave himself just on Witch's Brew with 3 mana available. Viper, opening up that tempo opportunity to Tyler, doesn't have one of the 2 Phantom Knives to capitalize on this turn.
Yeah.
So the Sap takes the Thunderhead out of the equation for an entire turn. But what do you play alongside that?
Well, probably Evil Cable Rat.
Well, I was thinking about the Questing Adventurer, because if you look at Tyler's Shaman deck, he just used a Lightning Bolt, he just used a Zap. Lightning Storm, Lick 'em, another Lightning Bolt, another Zap. Those are really the only ways to deal with it.
But there's not really a way to make it bigger, and that's the, I think that's the issue here. And
yeah, I mean, you're worried about the extra damage being able to pick off your Questing Adventurer,
yeah.
But it puts Tyler to a test, and if Lightning Storm happens to be the only way he could do that, that's a pretty ugly turn.
Yeah. But to expand a little bit on my point from earlier, I'm pretty sure the way Tyler wins this matchup is just by killing Viper.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's not about trying to out-resource him or do anything along those lines, because if you take it too late, then you're going to end up in a spot where he's going to outvalue you with Heistbear and Togwaggle. And the double whammy of trying to play a little bit more aggressively to try and kill Viper is that you may force him to use crucial resources to deal with your board state because of the threat of damage. The only way Viper has to heal is Ziliax, and if he forces out Preps early, or if he forces out suboptimal Ziliaxes or Gadget and Auctioneers, that means that as the game goes later, it's going to take Viper longer to get to those Heistbear and Togwaggle plays, and they're going to be less impactful. Surprisingly, a reasonable draw. Reason being is because allowing it to grow early means you can feel free to draw through your entire deck and know that when you need it, Togwaggle Scheme is going to be there to shuffle one of 2 things, either more Heistbear and Togwaggles that are will be 0 mana when drawn with Wondrous Wand, or Leroy's that you've shuffled in that will be drawn by Wondrous Wands to get you an OTK.
I think Tyler's in a pretty rough spot here. Does have the Swamp Queen Hagatha coming up here, so gets to teach it 2 spells, but I think maybe this is the turn that Viper was thinking about exactly when he did put Tyler to that test, was, well, if my opponent needs to kill me, that means on turn 7, I need to build the strongest position possible to threaten my opponent. That exact play is, with the cards he's dealt, happens to be Questing Adventurer. If Tyler goes for Swamp Queen Hagatha in that spot, he is going to get blown up.
So many options.
The Cobalt Lackey here over the Witchy Lackey to play around the possibility of a high-rolled Lightning Storm taking out the Questing Adventurer.
It's right before turn 8 where the Walking Fountain comes down. This is a very nice setup from Viper. And this is what I mean by Miracle Rogue experience and being an expert on this deck. I think that Viper's play with the Questing Adventurer on turn 5 is extremely good and justifiable because of the position it puts Tyler into. But this turn, he completely denied Swamp Queen Hagatha with a tool that was a risk earlier in the game, and it's bought him so much time to play towards Gadgets and Auctioneer.
Well, I mean, one thing that I want to point out is that was the only play he could make that turn. So while it is a good play, there were no other options.
But it's the fact that he held it instead of taking that risk early on.
Yeah.
That to me is the special part about it.
Yeah.
Sap that Healing Totem.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, just about cycling through his deck.
That prep is likely to stay in hand, I would think.
Yeah.
If Viper didn't have an extra Evil Miscreant on board, I think there's a chance he considers cycling this prep. He's going to cycle it anyway. Well, the buck stops there.
That is a really big tool to just cycle through for an extra draw.
It really is. Now, there's one more left in the deck.
There is. But having double prep allows you to do the nutso things. Having double prep allows you to have another option for Hearthstone Togwaggle. It doesn't have to be reduced in cost in order for you to play 2 treasures, which opens up the OTK possibility of Leroy Jenkins.
And look at what the double hex has created here for Tyler as well. The Walking Fountain actually doesn't even kill off the Gadgets and Auctioneer in this spot. Tyler has to just leave up a Gadgets and Auctioneer, and that's when absolute disaster ends up happening. Viper's Miracle Rogue is about to untap 9 mana with a Gadget Zan Auctioneer in play.
Woo-hoo. Two spells from the Drustvar Horror are Voltaic Burst and Lightning Bolt.
Wanted!
That's actually good, because it gives him a coin.
Well, the other thing, too, is with the way that Viper's hand is shaped up, if he could pick up a Lackey, he's able to damage away that 0-4 on the right side. Oh my gosh, another Wanted. I'm just going to watch. There's too much going on this turn, I think, to present real analysis.
Well, there's not that much going on, because he can't... has no way to activate the Wanted right now. Now he does. So he can want it again, coin again, and then play a Witchy Lackey. He does have to keep track of his Lackey generation. He does have 2 in hand already. He also has an Evil Cable Rat still left in the deck, so he will still have it.
Well, Shadow Step that would be the second one, which again, this is another important tool to the deck. I don't think it's necessary to save, but I also don't think it's necessary to use.
I actually think with the second prep, or one of the preps used, the second Shadow Step does need to be held.
Okay.
I played a lot of this deck over the past week, and one thing that I always regretted was when I used, between preps and Shadow Steps, 3 of them. Because the power potential with Hearthstone Togwaggle is just crazy when you have 2 of those resources.
Tyler's thinking about how to get out of this situation. And the fact that Auctioneer is not in the immediate threatened again is terrifying in Tyler's spot. Viper so far has just attacked with impunity in terms of digging into the deck. You know, the attack angle from Viper isn't necessarily damage itself right now. It's just the threat of drawing through the deck and assembling combos.
Yeah.
Tyler's just had no way to stop this.
So with the Sludge Slurper, he actually does have a reasonable way to clear off the gadgets and Auctioneer.
Draw a card and give your minions +3 attack. That's
what?
It's I just, you know, look, I'm going to be honest. Tyler's chances to win are slim to none because of this Auctioneer living for just one turn. I think Tyler was hoping that something catastrophic would happen from the second Swamp Queen Hagatha, and maybe, just maybe, he'd have a way to make something happen.
So maybe he wants to combo Hagatha's Scheme with the Dressvar Horror to go for a full board swing.
I imagine that's the ideal situation.
But Hagatha's Scheme is only 2 damage right now.
There's a Voltaic Burst loaded on
in a Lightning Bolt. But that turn was effectively try and high roll the Dressvar Horror.
I mean, there's a chance that Tyler doesn't want to immediately kill things, you know, for a number of reasons. I just can't really think of what that is.
Brotherhood shall prevail.
I mean, he's just going to kill him.
Oh, yeah, it's typically what happens when Auctioneer lives for 3 turns.
That's why the play from last turn kind of baffled me a little bit. You have to try and do something.
You wanted to risk being able to kill the Auctioneer via a Lackey generation?
Yeah, Sludge Slurper, if it had picked up the Damage Lackey, the Rush Lackey, or even the Ethereal Lackey, had a good chance of killing it. So that's 3 out of 5.
Spell Lackey can find Zap, Beakered Lightning.
Yeah, pretty much anything. Like, even if you just find Lava Burst, you probably just do that. He had 9 mana, so he could have done it all. Well, not... No, because he would have had to spend 10 mana in order to activate Lava Burst. But there was a ton of stuff that did it. I mean, he realized probably also that he could take a significant amount of damage because he has the Witch's Brew and Walking Fountain to bring himself back up. But the problem is that's just dealing with the board. The draw is what really gets me.
I think to me that the big key here is that the way that Tyler's going to win this game is if Viper just messes up. And that's not a good feeling to be in. Like that, I think that is honestly Tyler's best chance to win is Viper just straight up messing up.
So 15 plus 12,
27.
Yeah, that's just the game, right? Leroy plus Shadow Step Leroy.
Indeed it
That's
is.
going to do it. Viper taking a 3-0 victory over Tyler, eliminating him from the World Championship and moving himself on to the decider match later today.
Tyler's going to be sent home, but by golly, has it been a year for him. 2 championship appearances, made it all the way here to the World Championship. It's been a heck of a run for Tyler, who's been awaiting this big championship moment for a long time, but it's going to have to wait another year for that to happen. Viper able to be victorious in very decisive fashion, and there you see the hug. You know the two of them respect each other.
Yeah, I mean, they've both been around the scene for so long. And, you know, you talk about Tyler's run, and, I mean, he's also just been through so much, you know, even just in the past few months. Qualifying to the Winter Championship, you know, soon after his father passed away. Even just showing up to those playoffs had to have been tough for him. And to make it to the World Championship in itself is just a huge accomplishment. And of course he's going to be disappointed. Nobody's ever going to come to the World Championship, go 0-2, and not be disappointed. You'd have to be crazy to think that, but got to be proud of him.
Yeah. I think everyone you find in one of these elimination spots is going to be someone you look at and be surprised by. But boy, that's just the World Championship.
Yep. And this is worrying for Roger.
Oh, yeah.
Because Roger came to this tournament with one thing in mind. Kill all the warriors. Well, guess what? Viper doesn't have a warrior.
And indeed he does not. And, you know, even more worrying to that trend, Bloodyface did have a warrior, and Bloodyface defeated him anyway.
Still beat him.
So what's going to happen when the deck that you're trying to target doesn't exist in the other lineup? You know, you look at Viper's lineup, there's 2 aggressive decks with the Zoo Warlock and with the mid-range Beast Hunter, and then there's a combo deck with the Rogue deck that we just saw, and then there's the Big Mage deck, which I do think that is another soft target for Roger in that regard, where he's got a greedier Big Mage deck.
He's got a warrior.
He does have a warrior, but it's a Bomb Warrior. Bomb Warrior can perform quite well versus Mage in some situations. But the big thing to me is that he's got that Paladin. How can the Paladin hold up against that? That's a match I'm really looking forward to later on.
Yeah, well, that's going to be the last match of the day to end things off. Definitely looking forward to that one. But we're halfway through the day. 4 matches in the books. That means 4 more to go. We're going to move on to the decider matches, where we're going to send 4 more players to those quarterfinals on the final day of competition. But before we jump into those, we are going to have to go to a quick break, but don't go anywhere. More HCT World Championship right after this.